Francis hadn't become any more forthcoming as the day came to a close. Meeting up as a group once more, his family and now 7 new guests made their way back to the hotel. Nora and Ren continued to distract Amber, and thank the heavens for that. And with Pyrrha chatting to Ruby, he even managed to escape death by hug. All of those things should have left him feeling like the day had gone well, and yet it didn't. What had Coral meant about desire and intent? There were 2 different things, sure. Sometimes they work together. Someone could have both the desire and the intent to eat a cake. Sometimes it didn't go so well together. An image of a girl dressed in white pinned to a wall came to his mind, of his hands twisting the blade in her stomach. He hadn't wanted to do that, and no matter how much he tried to convince himself otherwise, he had gone there with full intent of doing it. Perhaps not specifically to her and not exactly like that, but he'd gone to the club armed and ready to send a message. Junior had been the one to turn it into a fight that cost his men their lives, but it wasn't fair to blame the man for that. Junior had done exactly what Jaune had known he would do. That's a pretty long facial hair in there. A glass clinked down before him, some unidentified alcohol within. He didn't need to look to know who it was. Yang took the seat opposite him, the 2 alone in the bar of the hotel. Most of the others had already retired for the night. He'd thought she had too. Thanks. He let out a long sigh. It had been a while since he'd had a proper drink, and the one Yang brought had the kick he needed. Well, the blonde laughed. Now a sigh too? What you thinking of? How we first met, actually. He shrugged. Yang's face darkened almost immediately. The expression held for barely a second before it had transformed back into a usual smile. He hadn't missed it, however. Your dad knows. Yang sighed, taking her own drink. I've seen him glaring at me when he thinks I'm not looking. Sorry about that. It's not your fault. She shrugged. Besides, he has every right to glare, doesn't he? I'm surprised everyone else is nice enough to me as it is. Jaune shrugged. Neither he nor Nicholas had really gone into detail on just who the blonde had been caught fighting with was. It would have just caused needless drama, and to be honest, Jaune had never thought his family would meet Yang. Now that they had, there didn't seem much point in turning them against her like that. I keep expecting your mum to take me aside and slap me, to call me a monster that nearly got her son killed. She wouldn't do that. He lied. Juniper would, and likely more. But it wasn't nearly as much as Yang's fault as she thought it was. He'd been itching for a fight as much, if not more, than her. He'd chosen his words carefully, just to make sure she got angry enough that he could lose himself in the sweet catharsis of combat. You've got a nice family. She sighed. They're all good people. They are. She gave him a sideways look, smiling slightly. You really love them, don't you? I do. Huh. It shows. Yang leaned back and drowned her drink, smacking her lips and letting out a long ah sound. He idly wondered how many other people would have killed to be in this situation, sat drinking opposite such a beautiful woman. Are you angry that I forced you away from them? Jaune sighed. You didn't force me to do anything. Didn't I? She laughed. I was terrified right from the point where Ruby decided she had to be your friend. Even too when I was put in your team. I kept thinking, he's going to hate me, or he's going to tell everyone what I did. But you never did. Why? Is it even important? It is to me. Yang leaned forward, settling the empty glass down. Did you think it wouldn't be important to me? You were willing to become a hunter to keep me out of prison, to basically save my life. In what way did you think that wouldn't matter? He sighed and nursed what was left of his cocktail. Of course he knew she'd been affected by what he'd done. He wasn't an idiot. Back when the JWBY had been formed, she'd been the only person to actually be on his side. She defended his decisions, fought against Carden when he asked her to, made sure to try and give him extra time to sleep, to distract Weiss. And when the Blake incident had happened, she was the last one to lose faith in him. She hadn't done any of that because she trusted him or felt he was a good person. She'd done all that because she felt indebted to him, because she wanted to repay him the only way she could. All of that, and he didn't even deserve it. Yang, it takes two to tango. I fought you just as much as you did me. Perhaps even more so, since he could remember losing focus thanks to the alcohol and actually believing she was Cinder. That had been a dangerous mistake. He could have killed her. Besides, you didn't make me agree to Ozpin's demands. I as good as did. You agreed to stop me being sent to prison. She paused for a second, eyes narrowing. Why do that for someone you didn't even know? That's the question she wants to ask. Not about me knowing her mother or how I held my own against her. He'd have called it stupid, but he could see the tension in her muscles. She needed an answer. But what could he give? I don't even remember anymore, Yang. He lied. Maybe it was a whim. Maybe it was something stupid like you reminding me of my sisters. What a load of bull. Jaune shrugged. If life was a movie, he could have played the amnesia card. But this would have to do. Why forgive me at all, though? Even if you felt bad and saved me out of the goodness of your heart. And didn't her tone make it clear she thought that of the possibility? Why be nice to me when I ended up on your team? Because she was one of his best friends and he would have died for her. Had died for her. Multiple times. She had died for him too. Do we have to talk about this, Yang? He sighed, rubbing his forehead. Maybe it was the time of day. Maybe it was just his bad mood. But good answers weren't coming to his mind. I did what I did because that's what I wanted to do at the time. Isn't that enough? After I worked up the nerve to finally talk to you about it? Yang slouched in her seat, one arm across her face. This isn't easy for me either. I nearly killed someone. I went out of control and accidentally attacked an innocent man. I had aura. I didn't realize that at the time. I could have killed a person if it was someone else. It's kind of a big deal, Jaune. It's still not your fault. How is it not my fault? Because no matter which way he looked at it, the incident had been his. Yang had never snapped like that against an unarmed person before. He'd known her for hundreds of years, enough to say that no one knew her better than he did. Sure, he'd heard about how she beat up the bar most times, but that was only when she was attacked first. For her to have done something this time, something so uncharacteristic like that, there must have been something that changed. And the only thing which had changed was him. Something had pushed him into the same train as Blake, the same thing that had caused him to win that competition to meet Weiss. It had made him jump into Pyrrha after and probably even caused his first meeting with Ren and Nora too. Had it forced Yang into an unsavageable situation too, just to force his hand. Had his friend nearly been sacrificed on the altar of his own resistance. Ozpin wanted me at Beacon before that even happened. That wasn't the first time he invited me, Yang. Better to try for a different tack, even if it didn't address her problem. If I hadn't been roped into Beacon here, that would have just happened a different way later. I got involved in the robbery between Ruby and Torchwick. I bet he would have forced my hand there instead, like he did with your sister. Why you, though? She asked. Why go through so much effort? I don't know. About this. That look on your face earlier. The others don't know, do they? Yang shook her head no. It wasn't hard to tell she felt guilty over it still. That was likely why she kept quiet for so long. Why she subtly tried to defend him at every little turn without giving anything away. The guilt must have been eating at her. Don't bother now, he said, It's water under the bridge. And if I snap and hurt another innocent person again, you won't. You haven't since then. I bet you haven't even felt the urge to do anything like that. Have you? No. She sighed and slumped in her seat. I've been looking out for it, but... well, nothing. I'm not even sure where that anger came from, or why it happened. More evidence that it wasn't natural. He thought with a frown. Yang was a berserker, yes, but she was nowhere near as mindless in her rage as some made her out to be. Cinder made use of that reputation in the festival, and the people readily believed it. Jaune knew better. Then stop worrying about it so much. As far as I'm concerned, you've paid me back for whatever you feel you owe me. If not in this life, then 100 times over in other lives. Besides, you didn't even do any real damage to me. Another thing worth mentioning, Yang said, leaning forward once more with a frown. Little mister, I can't fight to save my life in Beacon. What was that all about? I can't fight, not properly anyway, he quickly added when he saw her expression. We brawled, Yang. That wasn't a fight. Goodwitch would have had us in detention if we pulled off something like that in the ring. Might be worth it to see her expression. She giggled. Now that she mentioned it. That was a joke, Jaune. A joke. I swear, if you headbutt me in class, I'll kill you. Fine, Yang. Maybe he wouldn't do that to her. You'd have to find another victim. It's like I said, though. We were just fighting like idiots. If I had my sword, then I'd have probably lost. You didn't even draw your weapons either. She made to speak, but he cut her off. You didn't use your weapons. I know you deployed them, but that doesn't matter if you didn't use them. If you had, then you would have kicked my ass instantly. You are such a pain in the ass. Yang sighed, slowly pushing herself up. We cool then? Jaune asked, making to do the same but stopping when she pushed him back. I'm cool. She grinned. You're lukewarm at best, but I owe you. As much as you seem to think I don't. So I'll keep your secret about how you're basically being forced into this. Yang sighed and rubbed her face. I mean, I've been keeping it up until now anyway, and God knows Weiss will kill me if she ever finds out. She doesn't have to. Jaune shrugged. And besides, what does it even matter? I'm here at Beacon anyway. It's not like it changes anything. True. Be honest with me for a second though. Are you happy with our team? Yes. He was unhappy being at Beacon. He was frustrated that his plans had been thwarted. But his team? He was glad to have them around. As annoying as they could be. Yang's eyes were wide. She actually seemed stunned. As though she couldn't believe his frank honesty. Or maybe the easy certainty in his eyes. The absolute truth there. You idiot. She whispered and looked away. Caught the pleased grin on her face, however. Fine then, she said, unable to fully hide her giddy pleasure. For what it's worth? I think the team's pretty good too. Well, apart from the name, of course. Naturally. Jaune smirked. Good night, Yang. Night, Daddy. She cooed, faking a high-pitched voice as she walked away. He rolled his eyes, leaning back for a second before pausing. Oi, Yang! He called, stopping the girl just before she could leave. She glanced back, one eyebrow raised. What would you think if I asked you what the difference between intent and desire was? What would I think? I would say one's what you want to do, and the other's what you're going to do. He sighed at the rather obvious answer. You want more? Well, I guess it's the difference between you wanting one result, but knowing that it's in your best interest to do something different instead. Take you in class, for instance. You want to sleep, but it's not worth getting detention over, so you wake up. That was probably a poor example. The only reason he actually woke up was because Weiss made it impossible to do otherwise. If you want another example, then there's always me. Yang offered, leaning against the door and crossing her arms. How so? I desire nothing more than to walk over there, sit down, grab you by the collar and demand to know why you're fucking lying to my face about your skills, about knowing the woman in that picture, and why you've been acting like you do at Beacon. Ah, Jaune winced. But I intend to turn away and walk out that door, where I'll go back to my room, listen to Ruby gush about whatever she and Pyrrha got up to and go to sleep. I don't want to do that, but I'm going to do it because I trust that you've got your reasons. Reasons that are probably none of my business. I also trust that it won't hurt the team in any way. She paused. Can I trust that? I don't want to hurt the team. Jaune promised. Yang smiled sadly. But what do you intend to do, Jaune? Jaune hesitated. He intended to leave and abandon them to their fate. Good night, Jaune. Yang whispered, disappearing down a hallway. Jaune remained at the table, empty glass in hand. Maybe it's a question you need to ask yourself. His hand clenched, glass cracking a little but not breaking. He had to keep the bigger picture in mind. Yang, Weiss, Blake, and everyone else. They would all better be served by him working towards a solution, towards an answer for this recurring nightmare. And I'm so close too. Closer than I've ever been before. A fist came to rub his eye, a yawn escaping him as he brought forth his scroll once more. Sleep beckoned, but losing it was nothing new. There was too much to be done. Too much to prepare for. Blake would never ignore the White Fang's presence in Vale. That would cause her team to get involved, along with Sun and Neptune as well. It would be one of the many catalysts to the breach. He couldn't change her mind. She was just too stubborn. But maybe he could make sure she didn't feel the need to intervene. Perhaps he could take that away from her, from the team as a whole. A news report flickered to life on his scroll, illuminating a tired face in its light. New Atlesian technology stolen. The headline read. There was so much to be done. Do you have anything to report? The beautiful woman sat on the couch and looked down on her green-haired charge. Emerald didn't flinch. She kept her head down and spoke, much like how she had been trained. Torchwick is relocating a few of his safe houses. It looks like something has spooked him, but he won't say what. From what I saw, though, he looked furious. You don't say. Cinderfor allowed her eyes to drift shut. He's always been a cautious one. But this seems a little much, even for him. Were you able to find out anything from his men? They're tight-lipped, ma'am, Emerald reported. More so than usual. I got the impression that some might have had their contracts terminated. Permanently. Cinder hummed lightly, considering that piece of information. A culling of ranks followed by changing safe houses. The first thing came to her mind was that there had been a spy caught and disposed of. If anything had been leaked, then it made sense as to why Roman would suddenly be so nervous. She would need to have words with him on that. While she appreciated his discretion, their plan could not afford to be delayed because of his inability to keep his men in line. What of the other issue? She asked. We did all we could to find out about the guy who intervened at the docks. There isn't much to go on. He doesn't seem to have a record pre-Beacon, at least not in any academy. For all intents and purposes, he's a normal guy, not even a student before. And yet Osmond personally invited him to Beacon. You said you bumped into him the other day. Cinder watched Emerald squirm, knowing the girl's anxiety was due to what she had said the day before. Knowing that they had interfered against the Faunus runaway was bad enough, that they had nearly done so in front of a student of Beacon? They could have ruined everything with their foolish impatience. There was nothing usual there, ma'am. Emerald assured. He was friendly, talkative, and didn't seem to suspect anything at all. I think Mercury and I could take him. Do not think. Cinder cut her off, getting a quick nod in response. The two thinking they could kill him was enough. She dealt in certainties and absolutes. Alive? He was little more than a nuisance that had interfered in one of her plans. Dead? He could be so much more. Evidence. A message. A warning to Ozpin. They could not afford to have such things. You are certain he had no idea who you were? I'm certain, ma'am. We asked him about Torchwick and he just said it was luck. He actually claimed Torchwick was the one causing all the explosions, and that he just got caught up in them. Cinder's nails dug into the armrest. Just another thing she'll need to have words with the dear thief about. For now, she needed him. But the oh so useful little helper he had. If she found out that he had lied to her, however, that he had exaggerated this boy's input in order to mask his own incompetence, there would be more than just words between them. You two are to do nothing until Beacon begins, Cinder ordered, getting a nod from the girl. By the door, Mercury did the same, having remained wisely silent the entire time. Your cover, our cover, is too important to risk at this time. If Roman wishes to deal with this boy, then he may. But until we have more information, he is to remain Roman's problem. Am I understood? Yes, ma'am. They answered in tandem. Cinder nodded for the two to leave, lounging back once she was alone and drawing her scroll once more. Her thumb glided across the surface, opening a file she kept hidden. Golden eyes scanned the details. So incurious, this Jaune. But now there were two teams, each led by someone handpicked by Ozpin himself. His were blue, so that couldn't be the case. However, for him to be selected alongside a Ruby Rose, who had those accursed eyes, Salem would want to know. Didn't I tell you to take the day off, Galinda? You did, Galinda Goodwitch said, glancing up from the desk she was signing papers on. Her old friend and employer stood at the door to her office, his ever-present mug of coffee in hand. The term will soon begin, however. There's much preparation to be done. Ozpin hummed as he took a drink, walking into the room and coming to stand by her desk. She ignored him with practice ease, quickly signing away a requisition form that had been submitted by Peter. Certainly the festival is going to be an extra burden this year, Ozpin commented as he had read a piece of paper. There is some time until the transfer students arrive, however. Did I not already have rooms set aside for them? You did, but I believe we could reduce the burden of the janitorial staff by moving them a little closer to our own. Ozpin watched her as she spoke, listening. It might also promote closer ties between them and our students. Then I can only agree with your suggestion. Good work. You are still distracted, however. What is wrong, Galinda? Her pen clicked shut as she put it down, hands coming up to massage her forehead. He had seen through her, though perhaps that had been not so difficult a task. Ozpin had known her long enough. There were few secrets between them. You are still concerned about what is going on behind the scenes, he guessed. I have Crow investigating the robberies, Galinda. Beacon is the safest place to keep her. And if it means endangering the students, they would be endangered anyway should something happen. We are all working to make sure that doesn't happen, Galinda. I'm sorry, she said. I shouldn't doubt so much. I should hope never hear you apologize for feeling concerned for your students. Believe me, I feel much the same. You know we can't trust this to anyone else. Galinda nodded. It was the truth. The council were too political, too flawed in their thinking. The police? There was no doubt Torchwick, and goodness knew how many other mobsters, had their agents there. Even if they were as pure as fallen snow, however, it wouldn't matter in the face of a trained hunter. If they could take her down, then a police station would provide little protection. Their foes were not afraid to kill in order to accomplish their goals. And speaking of killing, I'm also concerned about a particular student of ours. Oh? Osmond smiled curiously, an almost amused expression. She snorted at his feigned innocence. And who might that be? I can't recall having you bring up a certain person's aggravating performance to me for… How long has it been? My. At least the last staff meeting. She flushed silently. Okay. So she might have been a little verbal in the staff room whenever she came back from hosting a class with him. She didn't feel there was any other teacher in Remnant who would have blamed her. Yes, I mean Mr. Ark, she admitted with a sigh, trying to ignore the amused look on his face. Allow me to ask again. Just why are you so determined to have him here? I thought your concerns as to his ability had been satisfied. They have, she assured him. They have, but I still question why you're so determined. You cannot have me believe you aren't aware of his actions, or why he's taking them. The boy doesn't want to be here. Come now, what young man wants to be at school? She didn't share in his humor and made sure he knew from the look on her face. He sighed. I am well aware of his feelings towards his situation here, the headmaster said. But when I first met him, there was something in his eyes that intrigued me. Funny. Glinda sighed. I saw the same, but I would not say it intrigued me. I'm not sure what exactly it is, however. You're not? Osmond seemed surprised. She frowned at him. Very well, very well. He chuckled. I would call it a look that I've seen in the eyes of many hunters in my time. I never thought to see it in one young as he. He has killed people, Osmond. He has. He did not appear overly concerned with that fact. He did not. And you? She asked, tired of his games. Are you not concerned? Of course I am. Osmond sighed, as, I'm sure are you. Although death and loss is to be expected in our line of work, to see it happen to one so young is not. Less so to see that said young man seems more accepting of it than even the most seasoned of huntsmen. That was one way to put it. Glinda couldn't help but recall their conversation, the look on his face when she told him she knew of the people he killed. Some might have been shocked, others might have become nervous, thinking they were in danger of being arrested. He looked bored. I've asked Crow to dig for information from his nieces. Osmond's hand touched her shoulder. You have arranged sessions with Bart for him as well. You know our old friend won't allow such an attitude to deter him from the truth. But is it safe? Glinda asked. Is it safe to force him here if he is capable of such things? I did not force him to hijack a bullhead in order to defend his friend. Osmond smiled. Believe me, if I had then, I would have asked him to be a little more subtle in the whole affair. Glinda chuckled, recalling the amount of work they had been forced to do in order to make sure all the blame was aligned to Torchwick. He was right, however. No one asked Mr. Ark to risk his life for his teammate. That was one of the only things that comforted her. He's dangerous, she whispered. He's a wild card, Glinda. Those are always dangerous.